Madam Clerk, as we prepare to proceed, I see we've got some additions to the agenda. Okay. Members of the commission, if there's no objection, we'll be prepared to add this to the agenda without objection. Madam Clerk, you ready? All right. All right. Good afternoon. We'll call this meeting to order. Again, as we call this meeting in order, is there any objection to adding the item to the agenda, the additions to the agenda? All right, without objection. All right.
Oh, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
and if we could add to the addendum agenda the deletion of item number 27. The petitioner is out of the country due to death of his father, so we're going to ask that item 27 be deleted.
Without objection. All right, Madam Clerk, I'm ready to proceed.
Okay. Call your attention to the invocation of our agenda, which will be delivered and shared with us today by Pastor Jesse Holmes, Discipleship Pastor, Crawford Avenue Baptist Church. After which, we'll ask our Deputy Administrator, Ms. Tanika Jackson, if she would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Go. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Let's pray. Father God, we're so grateful for this opportunity that we can gather together. And Lord, we're so grateful for your love and grace, and evidence of that love and grace is that we're alive today with life in our mortal bodies. Father, we ask your blessing on this gathering today. Will you grant our leaders wisdom and discernment, clarity of mind and clarity of speech? Will you grant them a unity that can only come from you? And Lord, as these leaders lead our city, may you be honored and glorified in the decisions that are made, and may it be a blessing to the city of Augusta. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor, would you please come forward?
Yeah, you could, right here. And it would, yeah, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Pastor Holmes, it's a delight to have you with us today. A pleasant surprise. We were finally able to make our schedules meet, and we're so grateful that you agreed to come and share and to bless our house. Thank you so much. Thank you for your prayers of wisdom, unity, and divine protection. We receive your thoughtfulness as an act of service for God. May he bless you with peace and love for your kindness toward us today. Thank you so very much. By these presents be it known that Pastor Jesse Holmes, Discipleship Pastor of the Crawford Avenue Baptist Church, is chaplain of the day. May his spiritual guidance and civic leadership serve as an example for all citizens of Augusta. Given under my hand the 2nd day of August, 2022, Hardy Davis Jr., Mayor. Thank you so much, and in observance of your first visit with us, we'd like to pin you with the City of Augusta pin. Again, thank you for coming.
Would you join us in congratulating him for serving as our chaplain of the day?
This time we call your attention to the recognition portion of our agenda. The commission would like to offer its congratulations to Ms. Jenny Sapp, our City of Augusta June 2022 Employee of the Month. Would you please come forward with any family members or co-workers? Mr. Roundtree, if you would like to join her. Right here is good. The mayor, and I think the mayor pro tem, Ms. Dowse, are you going to, okay? The mayor's got it, okay. As they make their way forward, Mayor Davis, the Employee Recognition Committee has selected Jenny Sapp as the June 2022 Employee of the Month for Augusta, Georgia. Jenny Sapp has been serving the citizens of Augusta-Richmond County for nearly 32 years as a member of the Tax Assessor's Office. Her knowledge and dependability are a true asset to the department and the personal property appraisal team, where she currently works as an auditor. Jenny exemplifies teamwork by always making herself available, training newer team members, assisting with other duties when needed, and pursuing ways to improve the work of her team. She puts forth her best every day and will go above and beyond to get the job done and carry out the mission of the Board of Assessors. Jenny has made a significant contributions in our department's recent conversion to a new property appraisal system, enterprise assessment, and tax. She took the initiative to write instruction manuals for her team's workflow and assisted in training coworkers on the new software. The extra effort she put into this project has gone a long way to acclimate the team to the new system and ensure that they maintain productivity during the transition. The Tax Assessor's Office and the Board of Assessors are proud to count Jenny Sapp as one of our own. Congratulations, Jenny. Based on this nomination and Jenny's outstanding service, the Employee Recognition Committee would appreciate you in joining us in recognizing her as the June 2022 Employee of the Month. Congratulations, Jenny.
Madam
Yes,
Clerk,
sir.
before we go to delegations, I'm going to share just an update,
Okay.
some more information I want to share. Over the last several weeks, as a city and certainly as a nation, we've seen a rise in gun violence, and we have seen loved ones, friends, and family members who have lost their life as a result of gun violence. I wanted to take a moment to share some of the work that we've been engaged in over the last few weeks, while at the same time, I want to take a minute to thank the members of law enforcement in our city for doing everything they can to make sure that we live in a safe city. I know that there's a sentiment, a sense of urgency, and a feeling that with the perceived increase in gun violence that our city is not safe, and that's just not the case. What we've seen is a confluence of violence in a short period of time. And it doesn't matter when it happens. What matters is that we've got loved ones, families, friends, church members, neighbors, and relatives that have lost their lives. We should all be concerned. I want to commend the coroner's office. I oftentimes say this to Coroner Mark Bowen and his team. I could not do your job, but I ask you to lift the coroner and his team members up in your prayers, because that's a tough job, especially when it happens at the pace that it's happening at in our city. In terms of some of the work, just a few weeks ago we were there at the White House, and we had an opportunity to be a part of the Safer America plan. And I think that's important for us in our city to know that we've got partners at the federal level who are wanting to be engaged in what is an ongoing battle. Recently, President signed the Safer America Act, which provides in the 2023 budget $35 billion to support law enforcement and crime prevention, in addition to the president's $2 billion discretionary request. This plan would fund police and promote effective prosecution of crimes that affect families that are in our city. In addition to that, it will also fund 100,000 additional police officers who will be recruited, trained, hired, and supervised consistent with these standards from the president's executive order. In addition to that, it equips communities with additional technology and personnel that's needed to quickly identify and investigate shooting incidents, of which we've had our fair share of, and to image every bullet or casing recovered in the city and enhance the capacity of ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau to make ballistic matches. And this is important. Many of us may not be aware of it and are tracking it, but most recently, our ATF Director, Daryl Bach, was confirmed. This is the first ATF Director we've had in almost a decade. And that's important for us in this country. It's important for us in terms of having a partner with local law enforcement agencies across the state and certainly the nation. I also want to make mention that in our work for Mayors Against Illegal Guns, there are 5 producers of the highest number of illegal guns used in gun violence, Glock being number 1. For those who don't know, Glocks are very popular and they happen to be made in the great state of Georgia. They're not the only ones, but there are a host, there are 5. It's important for us to take a holistic approach in terms of trying to address this issue. We are going to be working with our sheriff's agency and our marshals, as well as our ATF partners here locally, to help us drive out criminal element in our city and to do more than have gun buybacks, but to address this in a holistic way. To all of the family members who have lost loved ones, yes, we are praying for you. We are wanting to encourage and to comfort you. But I want to tell you today that we are not going to rest in the city of Augusta with just our prayers, but we're going to pursue every effort of criminal activity, and we'll prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. But we will continue to do everything that we can to make sure that our city is a safer city. It's not time for speeches and flowery words, but it's time for coordinated and collaborative action. And we are engaged and look forward to doing that. I wanted to mention that. You'll see more coming as it relates to that. But again, this is one of the first times we've talked about the challenges of gun violence and what we're doing now and what we will do as a city. And more I will be sharing with the commission. So I wanted to share that today, Madam Clerk. With that, I'll turn it back over into your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well said. Thank you. Call your attention to the delegation portion of our agenda. Mr. Moses Todd from I Love Augusta to discuss ambulance service in Augusta, Richmond County.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioner, I'm Moses Todd, Executive Director of I Love Augusta, and I'm here to talk to you today about emergency 911 ambulance service and receipts. I know there's talk in workshops and going around in reference, a $1.6 million subsidy for the ambulance service or for the provider of our zone. I understand that the state sets governs the zone, or a board do that's appointed by, the state, etc. But I think that we should, if we're given money, $1.6 million, that we should have receipts and we should have efficient service. And, you don't have to talk to a lot of folks that's needed ambulance services recently in the last, especially the last 9 months, to know that out in South Richmond County, it takes approximately 2 hours on occasions to get an ambulance. One case was a young man that come into the barbershop where I get my hair cut. He was having a bad day because he's lost his dad. He was there within 5 minutes when his mother called him. The provider did respond with a SUV with, I guess, EMTs or doctor's assistants, but they waited 2 hours for an ambulance. Now, I'm sure that, I could, if I was there, that maybe, 15 minutes would sound like 2 hours. But we're hearing this not just from one person, but from different individuals. And yes, Mr. Mayor, this is a petition of our government. This is a redress request and a grievance to my government, to our government, that we get receipts for any money that we give to anyone, and that we have accountability. I sat in federal court the last 4 days of last week, and there was a lot of talk about the lack of guardrails, the lack of receipts, the lack of accountability. And my government, our government, need to take responsibility for that accountability and for establishing those guardrails. This is an attempt of government oversight. But, I've been coming down here since 1984. And it seems that, with the same, with issues, and I can remember when I was on the board that we dealt with ambulance service issues. We dealt with indigent care issues. And the provider then, they've changed names since, was hitting us for about $4 million more than what they should have, with no accountability, no guardrails. We put a stop to that. And what I'm asking you to do, Mr. Mayor, whether in this commission, whether it's this provider, this request, or any request of taxpayers' dollars, that you get receipts, that you have guardrails, against waste, fraud, and abuse, and sometimes straight out corruption. And if you go back over the minutes, over the years, I've had that talks at this podium several times. So I'm hoping, in light of what's happened in the last several days, that these kind of talks get your attention, that you're responsible for the tax dollars and that they spent efficiently, and that you get receipts for the citizens to show those expenditures. So I'm here standing in opposition of a $1.6 million. I don't care what the source is. There's no free money. All money is taxpayers' money that come through this government, or fees for services or fines. And there's state law and there's federal law governing how you can spend those funds. And I would caution you against malfeasance, misfeasance, especially. Let's not turn out to be a Bell, California. Augusta, Georgia is better than Bell. We got to do better than 2 hours. I don't care who have the zone. You as a government have a responsibility, Mr. Mayor and Commission, to deliver the services to the citizens and taxpayers of this community, and an efficient service when it comes to E911. And I would advise citizens to have an ambulance service number on their refrigerator. And if one don't show, call another one. And if 10 show up, that's better than no one showing up. And, you know, as a citizen, I apologize to the individuals that feel in this community, this political subdivision, that they've lost loved ones because the E911 wasn't efficient. I was going to ask for additional time, Mr. Mayor, but I think I've, kind of stated my position. And I stand here in opposition to $1.6 million to the service provider for this zone.
Yeah, Mr. Todd, I appreciate you coming and sharing your concerns. This is likely the headline in the local blog post, digital blog post. Former Commissioner Moses Todd comes before the commission and says that they need receipts. And then somewhere in that, they'll probably say he should tell the mayor, we need receipts as well. While at the same time, I will tell you that I share your concern. There's no other jurisdiction in the state of Georgia that provides a subsidy. I don't know how we frame it, subsidy, an amount, etc. But when you can't get an ambulance to show up in 2 hours, let alone 20 minutes, all of us should be gravely concerned. In fact, it's reaching state of emergency proportions in our community. In a recent conversation with the chairman of Hephzibah Council, he too expressed grave concern about Gold Cross's inability to get to his residents in a timely manner. I can tell you we're looking at every option. And every option doesn't begin with, well, if you just pay me more, then we're going to do better. We've done that far too long in our city, in Augusta. Far too long. And now we're going to come back around and say we want to do it again. Not in 2022. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Our consent agenda consists of items 1 through 26. Items 1 through 26. For the benefit of any objectors to our planning petition, item number 1. Once the petition is read, would you please signify your objections by raising your hand? Item number 1 is a request rezoning from a Zone A agriculture and a Zone residential manufactured homes to a Zone B2 general business affecting property located at Fort Gordon, Georgia. Are there any Powell Road, actually located at 2111 Powell Road? Are there any objectors to this planning petition? Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, our consent agenda consists of items 1 through 26 with no objectors to our planning petition.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I have one to add and one to pull, so you want to do one at a time? I mean,
You've had the floor, sir.
I have the floor, so okay,
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I'd like to add item number 28 to the consent, and I'd like to pull number 11 from the consent.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Hassan, what was the one that you wanted to add?
Add number 28,
Okay.
pull number 11.
Okay. Thank you. And I would like to pull item number 15 from the consent agenda.
Thank you. Any others?
Mr. Mayor.
All right, I'm coming down the line. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's worth a shot. I'd like to add item number 29 to the consent agenda. We have a question.
Yeah, with objection.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Commissioner from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On item 28 that's added to the consent agenda, I know that the votes are there to pass it, but I would like to go on record as stating my vote will be no on item 28.
Okay. All right, so you don't have any objection to it being added to consent agenda?
Well, that's fighting a losing battle.
Well, I mean, it gives you an opportunity to debate it and say what you got to say, but again,
Okay.
I'm okay with it. All right.
No, the tiny
All right,
homes.
he's fine with that. Okay. All right,
Yeah.
Madam Clerk. Okay, Commissioner from the Mayor Pro Tem.
I know you won't do it, but I'd like to add number 30.
Well, we need that for the record, so we need that for the record.
Yeah, we need to. We'll let them enter it into the record, and then we can move expeditiously. All right, so with objection. All right. All right, Madam Clerk, I think that's everything.
Yes, sir.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion. Mayor Pro Tem?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Voting.
He's absent. Go ahead. That motion carries with Mr. Sean Franham absent and Mr. John Clark. Vote on item number 28 will be cast as a no.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we're going to go top, bottom,
Okay.
and
I
I'll let
think
you
that would
take your
take us
time.
to item 11.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Before you move too far, we added the addendum item.
Yes, sir.
Let's dispose of that first. That's the lead grant
Okay.
issue. All right, hold on a second. I'm gonna let her read it
Put it
into
in
the record.
a portion of
Commissioner.
it. The addendum item is a motion to approve allowing HCD to apply for a Georgia Lead Hazard Grant in the amount of $6,627,273, which requires commission approval to proceed as a result of the 10% financial match requirement if awarded.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 3rd. Okay, Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 6th. Thank you, sir.
Second.
Third.
Voting.
It's unanimous.
Attorney Brown. Thank you. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir, I was waiting to, I'm
Number
sorry.
11. That was the,
Item number 11.
yes, ma'am.
Motion to approve the administrator's recommendations as stated in the Employees Retention Plan presentation. Ms. McFarley is circulating an amendment to the supporting documentation, which is in your book, from the administrator.
All right, we're going to let the administrator present, and then I'm going to come to the commissioner from the 6th, okay? All right.
I think that's the new one.
Good afternoon, Mayor Davis and Commissioners. This information is presented to you today in response to a request last week. You were given some information in the Employee Retention Plan presentation, and after additional review of Part 1 of the presentation plan that was implemented earlier this year, the Administrator's Retention Plan recommendation for Part 2 is presented to you now to ensure consistency with the fiscal year 2022 retention salary increases that have already been given to employees. Presented before you is the Employee Retention Plan Part 2, which consists of a retention salary increase in the amount of 3% and a one-time retention payment based upon the salary ranges as shown and the corresponding retention pay amounts. Please note that part-time employees will receive half of the stated retention payment amount shown. The eligibility requirements that were requested last week include 2. Number 1, employees who have received an increase to their base salary as a result of retention efforts are not eligible for the retention salary increase of 3% and the one-time retention payment discussed today. Number 2, employees must be employed on or before August 15th, 2021 to be eligible for the retention salary increase of 3% and the one-time retention payment. This concludes the request for additional information from last week.
Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 6th and then the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Madam Administrator, for getting the language correct so you have less concerns about that. But my concern is also you have, and you can correct me on the language on this, you have some departments that are doing some reorganizing. You have some that are being reclassified. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do you know how many departments that is off the top of your head? And I'm sorry to ask you off the just on the floor like this.
I do not. However, several have already brought their concerns to the Human Resources Department.
Okay, so here's what I want to say in that spirit. If you have a department that is and persons in that department is going to receive increases as a result of the restructuring, I don't think they ought to be a part of this either, because all that's going to happen in between now and the end of the year for the most part. I think because almost like they'll get what's before us now, as well as their salary may get enhanced once the restructuring come in play. And so that almost like they get a double dip versus people getting one and some getting none. I'm not comparing about the ones you said none. I think that's appropriate, which is the ones who've already got something in 22. But I am concerned about a department, a person in that department, getting this, and then they get a restructuring of the office, and then they get monies again. Now, if there's some in that department that does not get it, that's fine. But the ones as a result of the reorganized department, I don't think, now that's just me, to my colleagues, and I want you to know fully that I'm in support of what we're doing here. That's just an observation on my behalf. but I'm in full support of what the intent, overall intent is here. So thank you, ma'am. Is there any clarity I need on what I just said?
No, sir, but would you add that to your motion in accepting this item?
Well, we'll wait till we get there because you got other hands up, and so we'll wait on the motion just now.
It's recognized as the Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor, and I concur with my colleague from the 6th as well in just trying to clarify some of these employees in these departments that have been reorganized over the past few months and some that are still ongoing. In regards to number 1, under the eligibility requirements, do you have those departments that have received those retention increases? I know public safety was part of that, engineering, utilities. You know, I think it would be helpful for us as we're making a decision to understand who all is really actually getting this, as well as those that will not be able to, because, you know, we'll be the ones that are fielding the calls. Hey, why is so-and-so getting this bonus? Why aren't I? You know, so I think that would just be really helpful to help us explain and to help everybody to understand. So that's my first question. Do you have those departments?
We do. However, it is not all departments. When I say that, so let's just take Department A, for example. It may not be everyone within that department. And so in that case, we would have to give you the department name as well as the individual name, because it may not be an entire department.
And, you know, in regards to what my colleague from the 6th was talking about, those that, you know, have under reorganization has received substantial increases in their salaries. You know, I agree with that they should not be eligible either, just because their job has really changed. And I asked a question during the committee last week in regards to whether or not this fell under the gratuity clause. Did we ever get an answer to that?
Recognized Attorney Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Garrett, yes, they immediately researched that matter. This is retention pay, but your question last week, was it a bonus?
It was presented as a bonus. So
yes, it's no longer that at this moment. However, but even with a bonus under the law, in this instance would be considered a fringe benefit, but this is no longer the bonus.
So how do you classify a one-time payment?
It's paid. It would be paid. The commission has regularly, when it did not do cost of living increases, it will sometimes, again, at the end of the year, give all employees a $500 bonus payout instead of a cost of a living, which is a way for the government to save a lot of money, because the employee's salary will not reflect that money going forward. It's a one-time payment as opposed to tacking $500 on every year from now on. So the government chose to give those one-time payments. But the law considered it a fringe benefit, which is regular compensation.
And my last question is, do we have a total amount for what this will cost? I know that since you've made changes, I know there were some figures last week that you presented. Do we know what that is actually going to look like?
So although the title has changed from a cost of living adjustment to a retention salary increase, the October 2022 implementation for the remainder of the year is over $500,000. And then the 3% increase is about $2 million going forward. As far as the one-time payment is concerned, I have that information in my notes.
Okay. Well, I'd like to make a motion that we refer this back to Finance Committee so we can get further clarity, as well as to make sure that we have all of the figures in front of us.
Commissioner, if that's the only item you're needing clarity on, if you would give me a moment, I could get you that information.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions.
So let's do this. Here's what we're going to do. Madam Administrator, I want you to grab your notes, and I want you to be prepared to field all of the questions. Okay? We got time.
Very good. No, that's good.
Yep. All right, Commissioner from the 8th. All right, he yields. I'm going to go to the Commissioner from the 4th for a series of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that.
Yep.
just want to get some clarity here, and I can kind of understand what we're trying to do here. I'm seeing a retention plan which addresses different salary ranges and bonus amounts. But what I don't see in there is what is to be expected of the employee. The fact of necessarily throwing money at retention is not something I'm overly comfortable with. I think I know the purpose for what we're trying to do, but at the same time, I know that we've done a number of things even before I got up here, but even since I've been up here, we've made sure that everybody got $30,000 as a minimum. There's been monies from ARP as bonuses. Sheriff's place got money. Of course, our cost of living. I know there was some statement, I think it was last time, that we were at an 18% vacancy rate in 2016, but we're at like 25% this year. Is that correct? Is that correct to say?
26%.
26%?
26%.
So my question, one of the questions is, how do we address, what is the real purpose of them not being retained? Is it just a money issue, or is it more than that? Because we've been given raises for several years, and so I'm just trying to figure out, is it something deeper, and how do we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to this community of taxpayers to figure out what's going on. It very well could be some bad management issues that's causing them to leave.
All right, so I'm going to address that.
Yeah,
I'm going to address that. The year 2022, we find ourselves challenged with an extremely competitive market. This is post-COVID. And I want you to keep in mind, as the youngest dean of the commission, that even in your previous time, government was extremely stagnant in terms of wages. What we've done over the last 8 years is look for every opportunity to be competitive, not only with the public sector, but also with the private sector. In 2018, that was the last time that we provided a COLA to City of Augusta employees. Post-COLA 2018, we're very fortunate to be able to provide essential employee compensation pursuant to federal regulations, primarily CISA, where public safety employees and others were able to receive additional benefit because they were frontline workers during COVID. You fast forward to what we've now been able to do with ARP. From a long-term standpoint, the City of Augusta needs to be more competitive. Thus, you see this work being brought forward. This comes on the heels of the Archer report that provided us with an overall compensation study post the previous commission of which you were a part of, which was one of the first times it had been done in a long time. Now that we're here, this is an effort to try to fully stabilize our workforce, and even that's challenging because you see people having other opportunities with what one would call in the HR world total compensation. That's the ability to telework. That's the ability to not only telework, but to work remotely. That's the ability to have strong health care. And all of that's the work that's being done now to help us get to that point. So to suggest that it's, some of those other ethereal things like bad management, this is a challenge for us in the City of Augusta to be able to keep good people, because there are better opportunities out there that are not just compensation. This compensation piece that you're seeing is a long time coming. When you think about the majority of our workforce, we're working at or below poverty level.
this is another step in the right direction. And so I think that's what you're going to see, Commissioner, from the 4th. And this is just a coordinated effort to try to get there, because what the commission has historically done, and I say this not even tongue in cheek, is that there's been a focus on more of the engineering services to make sure we're competitive in those areas. But you got other people that are working in other service areas that are delivering every single day who've been left behind. This is an opportunity to get it right.
Okay, just my comment to that, and then I don't have any additional questions other than that. I don't have any issues with what we're doing here, and I think it's appropriate. But I stand on what I said. I still believe that we, in addition to this, we need to be looking at our business practices, because the fact of the matter is that you can throw it out as a theory, but there's some bad management going on. That's my take. There's some bad management going on, and that can, and many times do, come into play in terms of retention. So we cannot overlook that. As we're asking for this, we cannot overlook that in conjunction with. So have no problem with what we're doing here, but we need to look at this holistically, because at the end of the day, yes, we're putting money there. We're trying to get them up to where we're supposed to be. But, and this is more engineering than anything, if our potholes aren't fixed, if our grass is not cut, if our parks are not clean and operating properly, and I can go on down the line, that does not look good to the community when we can't get those types of things done in a timely fashion, or when they're coming up to get licenses or whatever, or permits, or developers and whatnot, it's taking 45 to 60 days to get something done. That's what I'm talking about. And so we have to keep that in mind. Have no problem with paying people to do what they ought to be doing. Have no problem with that. But then let's do it at the end of the day.
I'm gonna speak to that. This is a really wonderful conversation. And the challenge is, when you raise the issue of the managers, you're looking at them, we're those guys. Absolutely. And since we're those guys and ladies, it starts and ends right here in terms of how we address what they bring to us, but at the same time, the cultural complexities of what has persisted for so long in this government. This is that bellwether moment where leaders like yourself and others have an opportunity to say, it stops right here. We're going to speak with one voice, and we're going to resolve these issues and provide our team with the resources that they need to be their best and brightest, to include career ladders of where I see upward mobility and opportunity. And if I can't be a people manager, then let me be a technical manager. And we got to be all of those things and provide all of those opportunities. Absent that, when you are young, gifted, and on and on and on, I can go somewhere else. So let's close that door and create opportunities for people to want to stay right here. Chair recognizes the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Madam Dowes, you didn't know it takes such a long process to get something through it. You look like you've been up there so long, you look like you're sleeping now. So they've been asking you all kinds of questions, stuff you didn't think would come into the fray. I agree with you. You know, I've been fortunate to make some decent money over a period of time, being in the school system and retiring as a principal and so forth, so on. And I just can't imagine trying to live on $30,000. And we sit here and go back and forth about whether or not people should have a bonus, or should they make $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000, and trying to make sure that people have a decent living and give them a little something from time to time to keep them from going to other places. I wanted to speak to just a moment to what Commissioner Hassan said about reorganizing people changing positions or what have you. And I'm just saying, these are just suggestions that if we make a decision today, whether or not they change seats or what have you, maybe today's where they sit is what their bonus should be, whether you reorganize or not or go to another job or what have you. But if you're in the $30,000 job today, then that's where your bonus should probably be. Comment to what Mr. Mason said, we've got to get on these directors and managers and so forth to make sure that we have people who are doing the job. With that said, I don't think we should make the good suffer with the bad. I think we should go ahead and give them the 3% and the bonuses or what have you, and just make sure that if we have folks that need to be out, they need to leave. If it's a director, then maybe they need to leave. So just making sure that we do the things that we should do. I'm in the support of what you're trying to do today for the 3%, and that's bold with the 3%, but I know you're going back a long way, so you do some stuff that's going to be off to the side a little bit. I understand. So I think we should support it today. I think we have some caveats. I don't believe that we can get them all straightened out today, but the basis is pretty good. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 10th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple of questions and then a statement. Number one, I'd like to know, how do we intend on paying for this? Where's the funding coming from?
From an increase in our sales tax collections that was not anticipated.
Okay. Number two, I think everyone that leaves employment of the city of Augusta should have an exit interview. I think that would answer a lot of questions. We're very lax in that area. Number three, I keep hearing talk about comparative salaries and compensations and everything, and the low wages in Augusta and everything. And then at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I see everybody leaving Augusta with the low wages from Augusta going into communities and counties that has a higher cost of living. So that's sort of a bother to me. There's a lot of places that we can reward good employees, but I think good employees should be rewarded. I don't think badged employees should be rewarded. I think badged employees should be gone. It concerns me as a citizen that we keep going up and up and up and up, but yet the service level keeps going down, down, down. We could use money to go toward the citizens. You're talking about homeless in Augusta. There's citizens in Augusta that live in houses that are 2 steps away from being homeless, and they don't have the money to do anything with, but yet we keep giving money away. And I don't mind rewarding good performance, but I just can't give it away. I just can't do that. As a taxpayer and as a citizen, and I speak for a lot of the citizens, I can't do this. I can't vote for this. I would second the motion from District 8 Commissioner Mr. Garrett that we send it back to Finance and let's talk about it.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a substitute motion.
Hold on.
I haven't made the motion yet.
Everybody just hold on. Everybody just hold on. I'm going to come back to the commissioner from the 8th because he needs to state what his full motion is. I'm going to give him a chance to do that. And then, because I don't remember it.
It was referred back to Finance Committee.
Did you include anything else in that? All right, that's fine. All right, so we've got a motion and a second from the commissioner from the 10th.
Third.
I'm gonna say something though. I'm coming to you, Commissioner. If I start a fire in the backyard of my house, my neighbors are gonna see the smoke. They might talk about it. They might. But as long as I got my water hose out there and I can contain it, ain't nobody gonna call the fire department. But if my neighbor across the street sees it and then start calling everybody else saying, Davis got a fire in his backyard, some might suggest that I got a problem. What I don't want is for any of the 2,700 employees who make up this workforce to believe for one single day that we don't appreciate what you do. Not a single day. From a service delivery standpoint, I've been in this city since 1985. And service delivery has gotten better and better and better. I can talk about the last 8 years, and I'm gonna do a whole hell of a lot of talking about it between 9 January to 7. Whole lot. And I can tell you, whether it's information technology, whether it's the tax assessor's office, whether it's the clerk's office, whether it's finance, more importantly, whether it's the planning department that went from 45 days to 21 days to being able to get a permit. Service delivery is 1,000 times better. So to all y'all out there, let me just tell you, thank you and congratulations for the work that you're doing. Every single day when you suit up, come to this job, and you go home safe, and you come back and you do it again, I want to let you know we appreciate you every single day. Chair recognizes the commissioner from the 6th for a substitute motion.
Sir, I still have one more question to add.
I'll come back to you. In fact, why don't I let you ask that question now?
That's good, because I'm next in line. The question is, in regards to this one-time pay, not bonus, is everyone eligible that has been employed since August 15th of 2021, even if they've received previous one-time payments? I know there were some ARP funds that we gave out to public safety and others that
This just relates to employees who have or have not received retention increases. So this does not affect any
the question's around the bonuses. Is every
bonuses from fiscal year 21.
And so everyone is eligible.
That's correct. Based upon these requirements, retention pay.
I think you may be answering that a little wrong, Mr.
Right, so I want to draw everybody's attention. All right.
Mayor,
I want to draw everybody's attention to the handout that Ms. Dowse just gave. And in it, she clarifies who this applies to.
Now, the 3% she does, but she didn't exactly clarify, whether everyone that had been here for a year come August 15th. I'm just making sure.
Okay, I was just told that I stated it backwards, so let me refer you to the screen.
Thank you.
The eligibility requirements, number 1, employees who have received an increase to their base salary as a result of retention efforts are not eligible for the retention salary increase of 3% and the one-time retention payment.
And I saw that, but there's been a conversation here, and I felt like there was maybe some miscommunication or misunderstanding up here. So I was just wanting to clarify. I wanted it read into the record. That's all I had. That's all I wanted. So you're good.
All right, Commissioner from the 8th, he waives. Commissioner from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first thing I want to say to all of my colleagues, I give great respect to all of your comments and all of your concerns about what could make this city better and the more accountability. I don't dismiss any of that. However, I also just have to remind us that we've already allowed this process to start. We've allowed it to start when we were talking about what we allowed with the engineering department and utility department and others. We've already allowed it to start. What we are trying to do here is just trying to begin to give some semblance of attempting to begin to level the playing field in doing these retention plans that you're putting in place. Because if we don't, we're going to have some serious inequities. And that's not to imply at all to my colleagues that you're saying we're not going to do this. It's actually additional information. But I also like to remind of us being that this is time sensitive, because between from now to budget cycle, there's a very hectic schedule, meaning that the administrator and her team is going to have to try to push it out, identify who's the employees one by one, make the necessary adjustments, do what needs to be done. So that it's time sensitive. And I encourage us to go ahead and pass it or make a motion to that effect. And I'm going to include in that motion persons who are in departments who is going to be, as a result of the reorg or as a result of be classified, be excluded from that. Be excluded. So my motion, Attorney Brown, Mr. Mayor, can you ask the attorney may have something he'd like to say about that?
Well, I think you ought to make a motion to approve it as presented. That's what I think. And I think the attorney agrees with that.
Now that's going to make me just vote against it then.
Well, here's why that is the superior
Well, you
motion.
want to have a sidebar on that? Y'all explain it?
Here's why that's a superior motion. Because
I got a superior motion. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, my God. I thought it was going to be a short meeting.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. A little humor then.
Yeah. Chair recognizes the parliamentarian. All right, we're going to stand at ease for 5 minutes. Stand at ease for 5 minutes.
What'd you say, Ms. Bonner?
And
Come on, press 1 too now. Go back over there. Come on, make the motion.
Commissioner, you need some help?
We're gonna make this motion. Excuse me.
All right, Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 6th for a substitute motion.
Yeah, my substitute motion, Mr. Mayor, is to pass it as presented by the administrator.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Got a motion and a second, and vote.
Sir. Ms. Scott, okay, we're doing it. Mr. Dennis, okay. That motion carries 6-3. With Mr. Johnson voting yes, Mr. Dennis Williams, Mr. Alvin Mason, Mr. Bobby Williams, Mr. Ben Hassan, and Ms. Francine Scott. Voting no, Ms. McKnight, Mr. Garrett, and Mr. Clark. Okay.
Number 15.
Item 15 is a motion to approve the inclusion of this matter in the discussion of the contract negotiation with Gold Cross, develop a process that will completely investigate and maintain related data.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor. Pull this item just for the fact of, I know that Commissioner Williams didn't have a lot of time during committee to really discuss what the process he had in mind would be regarding this. We ended up putting these two items together, and so I was hoping that maybe he could engage a little bit more and help us understand what you're looking for.
So, which Williams?
Dennis Williams.
Okay. All right. Is your question directed to him?
If that's okay, through the chair.
Yeah. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 2nd. Would you? No, from the 2nd.
Oh, I thought you
He has a
said
question
the same.
for you.
All right. The objective is to receive a report from the vendor, whatever time frame that we establish, that would outline the number of cases that they had to provide services for that was unable to pay for the services that they received. A breakdown of the claims, the type of run it was, because they do get paid according to the nature of their particular mission, and basically keep track of it that way. You don't have to use patients' names. They all are assigned a number, and we could use the number to identify the individual cases. But basically, to have a system, an office, drawer, whatever you want to call it, where any complaints come in regarding the vendor will go into, be recorded and documented, and there should be an investigation process on looking into these allegations and with the final results on. It's simple, it's not complicated, and it's not drawn out. It's just something that would help us support, well, helps the vendors support their claims for assistance. When they send us an invoice at the end of each quarter outlining that we provided services to 55 non-paying patients, there should be a record of all of that maintained in the same office. And then just simply the complaints, it's just like filling out any complaint form anywhere else and maintaining a record. And also, well, that's enough.
Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Williams. In regards to the investigation part of this, who would do that investigation?
That's something that would have to be established by the vendor and us and the government.
Okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that one because, you know, we have a lot of vendors out there that do work for us, and I'm not sure that with any of them we do any sort of investigations into work that they provide. So I'm just, that was really the only question in regards to that. But in reference to this item, I know that the contract negotiations are currently in progress. I know there's been quite a few meetings over the last couple of weeks, and I guess this question will be for either the administrator or for legal. Is it proper to add stuff to contract negotiation already in progress?
Attorney Brown.
It will be the will of this body if it's, I would take this as if you decide to, if the body decide to do this, I think the proper way for the team to take it would be to take it as instructions of elements that we want to include in that. To this point, we have not included it in because we have not received that approval. The other way, what the commission could do, along with the previous attempt to add things into the negotiation, it could wait until the team finished this first round of negotiation and come back with the commission to see what we have in the contract and then tell us.
All right, thanks, sir. I'm done.
So this is a motion to approve.
Well, based on what the attorney said, I would say that we deny this until after this round of negotiations, until we can see what's actually in the current contract.
Yeah. So, okay. All right. Chair recognizes Mayor Pro Tem.
Hey, I think negotiations should be as comprehensive as possible, and that we get in what we want. I think it's appropriate to ask for data. And the use of devices to detect and track what the ambulance service is doing, I think is appropriate at this time, so I make a motion to approve.
All right.
Substitute motion to approve.
Is that Mr.
Well,
Johnson?
there's no, this is the main motion.
So make a motion to approve.
All right, and a second. All right. Chair recognizes Commissioner, well, he waives. Okay, all right, he waives. All right, voting.
Ms. McKnight, is she? Okay. That motion carries 6-2 with Mr. Garrett and Mr. Clark voting no, and Mr. Mason and Mr. Franham out.
Madam Clerk, let's go to number 30, and we'll close the business of the day with item 29.
Item
number
29.
30. Item 30.
Number 29.
No, I'm sorry, number 30.
Are you going to 30 first?
30,
Okay.
and then we'll close with 29.
Okay. Item 30 is presentation by Malden and Jenkins of the results of the 2021 financial audit.
That ain't me.
Do we have copies of the presentation?
I don't know what you all have given them. We'll send them out.
No, we do not have hard copies today.
Okay, today.
They're going to forward it to me, and I'll send them out to you. Yes, sir. It's on your screen, soft copy.
Okay. As far as the question of what do we have available today, what I've got is just this PowerPoint presentation. Your annual financial report has already been issued. Copies have been held with the Finance and Accounting Department. So what I've been asked to do today is come give you a summary of, if I were in your shoes, what I'd want to know. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and just start going through here, and if you've got any questions, as far as I'm concerned, I don't know what the protocol is, but as far as I'm concerned, if you've got any questions, just stop me at any time, and we can certainly have any dialogue you'd like.
Mr. Miller, let me get you to speak into the mic so we can pick you up. It's right there in front of you.
All righty.
You can, yeah, okay, that'll work.
Is this better?
It's much better.
Okay, I'm sorry. Again, today, the whole purpose of being here today is kind of give you the overview of the audit. The audit was issued on time. It's due by June 30th each year, and it was issued this past year at June 30th. It's also been submitted to the Government Finance Officers Association, for which I fully expect you all to be recognized and awarded a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. I'm going to walk through the various audit elements, and again, if you've got any questions, just let me know. A little bit about us, you know something about us, but we're a pretty large firm doing a lot of governmental work. We serve about 650 governments across the Southeast, include about 160 cities and 75 counties, primarily in Georgia. Another thing about us is this is an example of who we serve. You know, we've got a lot of large communities such as yourself, including just recently we picked up the city of Atlanta is now a client of ours. We'll be doing for them the same thing that we do for you all, the annual audit. As far as our audit opinions, a couple of things. The number one thing you want to hear from an auditor such as myself is, are our financial statements correct? And let me just say in a nutshell, yes, they are. We do believe they present fairly in all material respects. Your position, your results of operation, your cash flows, all relevant disclosures, all those things that you're required to do, we do believe it does just that. On the single audit, which is where we have to do a compliance audit relative to different federal programs, this past year you all had about $46.5 million worth of federal funds come through. We were able to audit 5 of those major programs, about $39 million or 85%, more than enough that's typically required when you do a single audit. We did have a finding relative to the ERAP program. There were some funds over in the ERAP that were being spent incorrectly. Management has now been made aware of that, and I feel certain that they were able to cure that situation. It was a matter of just spending monies from the wrong bucket at the wrong time, but you do have other funds that you can pull from and move it back and forth, and I think that's probably going to be the case going forward. But we did have that finding. You have been receiving the award for the financial statements, and again, you'll be getting that again this year, I feel certain. When looking at the numbers, you all, as you already know, are a large government. When you look at all the different operations that you all collectively have, under the primary government's umbrella, you all have over $2 billion worth of assets. Now, that's not all cash. That's a lot of fixed assets, infrastructure, and all those things. About $1.55 billion of your total assets are in the area of capital assets. You also have your fair share of debt. You've got about $1 billion worth of liabilities. That includes things like accounts payable, accrued salaries, other accrued expenses, and long-term debt that you all have here. At the end of the day, you've got an equity position of about $1.24 billion. Again, I think that looks very good when you look at those numbers, big picture. When you look at your overall operations, you took in about $511 million worth of revenues this past year, and you spent about $459 million, giving you a $52 million bottom line. Before anybody gets excited about that or distressed about that, I want to do a reconciliation of sort on this next slide. The $52 million bottom line that you had, you needed every bit of it when you look at how you all operate here and all the investment you're doing into your facilities. If you add back to that $52 million a non-cash flow item called depreciation, that adds to your resources to be able to do these things. You also had some increases in your long-term debt where you went back out to the market, you entered into other kind of debt instruments of about $23 million. Those three numbers, 52, 55, and 23, provide your resources to do all these other things. Well, this past year you spent $69 million on purchase of capital assets.
about $6 million a month. That's a lot of funds going through. You know, you see it coming through here all the time. You're approving a lot of these projects. It was, again, $69 million. You also paid off about $58 million worth of debts. That's a really strong use of funds. That's a good thing. At the end of the day, the $52 million that you had as a bottom line, I can reconcile it down to where it was about a $3 million cash inflow. So it's kind of like so many things in life. You know, if you're going to add on to your house, if you're going to buy a new truck, you have to have the bottom line first to do that in the big picture of things. And you all have that same scenario here. You're buying that pickup truck is the same thing as buying these capital assets of $69 million. Paying off your debt takes a good bottom line to do that. And that's what you all have here across all parts. I mean, I'm talking about utilities, general fund, everything. This is what we're looking at when we look at the big picture. When looking at the general fund itself, you've got about $59 million worth of total assets, about $13 million worth of liabilities, giving you a fund balance of $46 million. That $46 million is also about $41 million unassigned. When you look at that $46 million, it gives you about 103 days to operate without any other funds coming in. At 12/31, that's not a bad place to be, but it's not the best place to be. You know, 12/31 for a lot of governments, that's their fattest time of year. So what that says to me is you're in a good place, but you're not in any place to let's brag about it, that kind of thing. You still got to deal with the future. You got to go through the next 12 months before property taxes come in. You've still got to have all these other revenue streams and all these other things that we have in government. And so again, that's a quick and dirty on the balance sheet there. Your general fund took in about $169 million in total revenues. Big part of that, of course, is property taxes, sales taxes, and franchise taxes. Those three right there alone were a big part of the general fund's resources. You spent about $163 million, giving you a bottom line increase to fund balance of about 5.7. So again, I think when you've got as many things going on here as you all have in Augusta, I think you need to have an increase to fund balance each year to provide that basis for going forward with all your initiatives. If you didn't have that, we'd start whittling away too much at fund balance, and you might not find yourself in the position you want to be in 3 or 4 years later. So again, just things to think about. There's no one way or the highway kind of answer on that, but just things to reflect on. Okay, it's not advancing. Let's try it another way. That's what I've been hitting is the keyboard. Oh, there it went. It actually just flew. Skipped a bunch of things. There we go. Looking at a pie chart of your revenues, you know, things like this to me are a good way of kind of looking and get your arms around what we have here. Notice the shaded blue, that's your property taxes. The shaded purple is your other taxes. That's like your lost money, your local option sales tax, franchise fees, and about 4 or 5 million of other taxes that you all take in here. You look at those two slices of pie right there, that blue and that purple. Without taxes, we have a tough time in government, and I think you probably already know that. When looking at the expenditures, the big red slice that you see, about 45% of your expenses are in the area of public safety. That is not unusual. That is exactly where I expect to see it when I go to a government of this size and nature. So again, but you can see how, again, how big the public safety aspect is, the functionality of that aspect is when you're looking here at Augusta. Another thing I like to look at is look at a trend over the last few years. The red bars are your expenses each year in the general fund. The green bars your revenues each year. And notice how the green bars are a little bit taller than the red bars each year. That becomes that margin. Remember I said this year it was 5.7 million on a few slides ago? You can see in that last column, in that 21 column, that margin right there is that 5.7. So every year we've been adding to fund balance, which again, notice how your expenses are growing. For the most part, you came down this past year, but when we had the year of 20, the COVID year, they went up, 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 up. We have to have funds in place to be able to continue to increase our operations. That's where I'm going when I say you need to add to fund balance each year. If you don't do that, then how do we handle the future increases in operations? So this is another graph I like to look at. It basically is looking at that same bar chart, but just looking at little points. And each one of those points is an increase in fund balance each year. You heard me say the 5.7 million. There's that 5.665 on the top right. Each year for the last several years, you all have had an increase to your fund balance. That's a healthy place to be. Another thing I touched on earlier is I said you had about 103 days worth of fund balance when you look at the general fund. Your expenditures were just short this past year of about 160 million. That's on the far right blue. If you look down on the far right red, you've got about 46 million in fund balance. That 46 million divided into that 160 million comes out to 103 days. That's what you've got there. You've got that kind of coverage when looking at your operations. It's a healthy place to be. I think it's very wise to stay there as long as possible. Going to other funds, you've got quite a few. I'm not going to talk about each and every one of them, but you have the special sales tax fund. Currently, it has just short of $100 million in it. It only has about $600,000 worth of payables. So it's got fund balance of $99 million. That's a good place to be with all the initiatives you've got. You've been collecting over the years a lot of money since SPLOST. You collected about 47.5 this year. You spent about 18.3. Your fund balance went up to 29.3. So you've got all those funds, a great amount of those funds that you've collected in the SPLOST program. You have them sitting here waiting to be utilized in the various things that you have planned. Your fire protection fund has about 26 million in assets, only about 1.5 million in liabilities, a fund balance just short of 25 million. And it was a healthy year. It had a bottom line increase of about $900,000. Your urban redevelopment financial statements have only about 7 million in assets, offset by about 5.7 million of liabilities, for a fund balance of 1.4. And it had about a $900,000 decrease to its fund balance this past year. So that's the only one I think that we're going to see a decrease on. You look at your water sewer, that's one of your larger operations for sure. $700 million worth of assets. Of those, about 570 is your capital assets net of depreciation. You've got about $497 million worth of liabilities. A large part of that is long-term revenue bonds and those kind of things. You've got about a $205 million equity position. This past year, it took in about $96 million and it spent about $87 million, and it came down with a bottom line of about $9 million. So that increased your equity position in that operation this past year. Your airport, again, $162 million in assets. 116 of that is in capital assets. 25 million of liabilities and 137 million net position. Healthy for sure. 34 million in revenues, but that does include 18 million of contributions primarily from the FAA. You know, you pretty much, when you run these operations, these airports, you kind of do them in a partnership with the FAA, and they contributed about 18 million to various different things relative to the airport. You spent about 19 million, so your bottom line was an increase of 15. Garbage collection, this actually is one of your more impressive funds to me, because I don't see most garbage collections have bottom lines that are good. You had a bottom line of $100,000. Typically, garbage collection in most places I go show a real negative there. And again, you've got about 26 million in assets and 23 million in equity. You took in 21.3 and you spent 21.2 for that $100,000 I was speaking of. Again, I go to so many places where that is a tremendous negative, and what happens is the general fund has to supplement it in certain ways. Stormwater, another one that's actually doing well for itself. A lot of places I go, that's not the case. It had about a $2 million increase to the bottom line this past year. 21 million in assets, 18 million in net position. Took in 15, spent 13, had a $2 million increase to its bottom line. And it froze on me again, but it's going to jump again. Another way. It's frozen. It's just spinning. All right. Let me just ad lib for the rest of it, unless it decides it wants to move forward. I'm not sure what's going on with it. In a nutshell, oh, there it just moved, didn't it? Or no, it's trying to close. In a nutshell, that was the big parts of your financial statements I wanted to look at. There was one slide I really wanted to show you. It had to do with your pension plan. You've got like 5 pension plans, and I highlighted your 3 big ones. And I wanted to say your pension plans overall look to be pretty good. I think one of your plans is funded at about 84%, another one's like at 80, or at 92%, another one's like at 105%. You bring them all together, you're like 89% funded. That's outstanding. I'll tell you, most places I go, it's not that good looking. So that's really strong. You do have other post-employment benefits, however. There are about $227 million worth of liabilities that have no offsetting assets. If anyone ever sits on this commission and thinks that we've got too much money, start funding OPEB, because that'll be a great step in the right direction of funding future health care issues when people retire. You all are just like a lot of governments, including the state of Georgia. Most people don't have any funding amounts going toward that right now. It's kind of on a pay-as-you-go. When it comes to management points and findings, let's see if I can remember them from my pure memory here. We did have a finding relative to your grants management having to do with some deficit funding that was over in your neighborhood development fund. It was about $2.2 million that we got with management and decided it should be written off because they did not have the ability there, the nature of their operation. They could not fund a deficit. The deficits in that kind of situation with every government are typically funded by the general fund. So we did go through and say to the people here, let's go ahead and make an adjustment for that. It was significant. It was material at $2.2 million, and we had to, we were required to make it a finding. In that same fund, you heard me touch on earlier about the ERAP money that was misspent out of the wrong bucket. It was about $700,000. So it's not huge, but it's big enough under the federal standards that we had to cite it as a finding and had to go ahead and qualify our report because of that, relative to that matter. When it came to management points, we had some that you've seen in the past. We had some segregation of duties issues in some of your constitutional offices. We had some excess funds. When you go to these, whenever you've got a constitutional office, whether it be sheriff, probate, tax commissioner, whoever it might be, every asset they've got belongs to somebody else. They don't have an equity position in those monies, okay? So whenever we see an entity, one of those type of entities, have assets and don't have the liabilities that match up, then we've got an excess. We can also sometimes see where we've got liabilities that are greater than the assets from time to time. A very common situation we see at most of our county governments. We have it here. We'd recommend that we look at that and take care of that type of matter. We had some old outstanding checks that I've mentioned to y'all for several years. It's about $45,000 worth of old outstanding checks. Just for the record, and when I say old, how old? Since 2004. So we've got some things there we ought to go ahead and clean up when it comes to those type of things.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You indicate that you said it before to us.
Yes, sir.
My question to our team is, in the event that it's been mentioned, and he's mentioning it again this year, what's the delay in resolving this?
Okay.
Each year we reach out to the constitutional officers, the elected folks that are in charge of these areas, offering our assistance and making them aware of these repeated findings. As of yet, we have, they've not accepted our offer of help.
What I'd like for you to do today is to provide Madam Clerk with a list of who those are and the associated findings so that we can have that communicated to the commission. Okay?
I will do that.
Thank you.
I'm okay. I'm almost done.
He's done.
I'm almost done. Truly. I know y'all have had enough already of me. So, the only other thing we had, we've already discussed.
We've got a question from the commissioner from the 8th.
Okay.
No, this is for the end.
Okay.
Okay. The only other management point we had was just recommending that the airport record their cash a little differently. They have been grossing up what's on their books for cash, meaning they might have, for every dollar over here, they might have 75 cents over here. It's a reconciliation of sort. Instead of just saying 25 cents, they're putting on there at a gross perspective. It's gotten very large. We know what it means. Management here at the county's Board of Commissioners offices, we know what it means, but we've gotten with them and said, look, why don't we go ahead and just make this thing a little simpler, a little cleaner? And again, that's why it's just a management point. It's just a recommendation. However, I will tell you, having had dialogue with them, they agree and they're going to change what they're doing. It'll just make things cleaner. It's not like they're doing anything wrong. It just make things cleaner.
In the presentation that you're forwarding to the clerk, are those recommendations included in that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, just for the record, management's been given everything that we have typically to give to you all for a deliverable. Again, when we get to June 30th every year, we have to give you your financial report, followed up by management letters, the single audit report. We also do a separate standalone audit on your utilities and on your airport. Those have all been delivered as well. So all that is within the confines of this building. And if you need any kind of look at any of those, I'm sure they can give you any copies that you need. And I will also be happy to come over here to visit with any one of you all to look at anything that you may have, should you have any questions, thoughts, et cetera. That door is wide open, so just let me know if I can ever come visit you. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close the book and just, again, see if you've got any other questions that you might want to bounce off me while I'm here today.
Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate this report. Thank you for helping to draw a picture around where we stand as a government, and this definitely helps, especially as many of us work through projects each year and trying to make sure that our citizens are taken care of. I actually wrote down a couple of slides to go back and look at, but since the computer's locked up, that's going to be hard to do.
You said we might could do it over there, but
It's all right. This is a simple question around slide 10 where you had the pie graph, and Public Works was like 5.7 million or whatever. What do you include in that category? Is it?
I'll actually answer that question by opening up the actual big picture document. Public Works, Donna, Tim, y'all want to speak more specifically to that? I would talk general terms. He's talking about Public Works and what's included in the general funds Public Works. It's about 5.5.
Right. That is the operations, basically the administrative costs for the engineering type departments and traffic engineering. The reason it is such a small number is all of their capital projects and everything is in SPLOST and other funds.
Okay.
So that's the reason it's a little bitty looking piece.
That's what I thought, but just
that's
kind of
right, but it's so little, so you wouldn't have thought that that was it.
Right. Okay. And in regards to the 103 days that we have cash on hand, what is your recommended? Where should we be aiming for? As we're budgeting, we have a budget workshop tomorrow. So as we're trying to plan and make sure that, we're in a good place.
That varies from government to government. And I would say the best way to answer that question is to get with your management here, people in the finance and accounting, and look at what it is at different times of year.
You're the only one that gives straight answers, so that's why I was asking you.
Well, no, I'm trying to give you a straight one here too. I'm saying it's going to depend because that's going to change from different time frames.
Gotcha.
And it depends on also how property taxes compares to all the other revenues, how seasonal or not seasonal different things are. What I would do, it's a fair question. I would ask management to come behind this audit and say, what did it look like at March 31st? What did it look like at June 30th? How did it look at 9/30? Or any other interim times that you may have. And to me, that ultimately gives you the answer. Where do we need to be? Wherever the lowest point is or wherever the highest point is, we need to be somewhere there. We've got to be able to sustain ourselves. You don't want to be one of these governments. You can't be one of these governments that takes on initiatives and says to your people, oh, we got to stop. It's August. We can't do anything for the rest of the year. You don't want to be in that position. So that's why it's important to be looking at it all year long to determine what's the right level for you. Because what might be the right level for you could be different from Columbus, Georgia, Macon, Georgia, Savannah, Georgia. Everybody's got a little different dynamic.
Sure. Okay.
Really and truly.
No, that's helpful. And hopefully, I know you talked about, you only had the slideshow for us today. Is this something that you could send to our clerk to send to us?
They have everything.
Okay. And last question, Mayor. Is there a reason why finance, and I know you can't answer this one, finance doesn't do the quarterly reports anymore? You used to post them online and hadn't seen one of those in a while.
With the changeovers in administration, and we're working out some new formatting that I'm used to my old formatting. I was cranking out reports in that manner, and we're working on some new reporting that we believe may give you a little bit more information, a little bit more easier to understand. But we've been so busy with everything else that I could have cranked them out in the old format, but switching over to the new ones is taking a little bit longer. So, but tomorrow you will be getting 6:30 information.
Cool.
So I will be presenting that tomorrow.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. And we'll have the copies of all requested information transmitted to the clerk to include that additional information from the Finance Department. Madam Clerk, Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, I think we've got one final item. That's item number 29.
And that is to consider the draft ordinance for tiny houses, tiny homes.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am, first of all, I want to again thank the commission for agreeing to direct staff to draw this ordinance. I think that they've done a magnificent job putting a piece of legislation together that I think we all can get behind. But I believe at our Public Services Committee meeting, there were a few questions, and I feel like my colleagues have a few questions, and so I'll yield any comments that I have, Mr. Mayor, for colleagues who have questions on this matter.
All right, who's presenting this?
It would be planning and development.
Do we need to get her down?
We'll make an attempt to reach her. In the meantime, you can carry on with your conversation.
Well, the conversation has
with your questions. Excuse me, with your questions.
Well, the questions we need to have answered by somebody.
Did they not present last week?
I don't know. I wasn't here.
This was presented in great detail last week, which is why I'm not sure why it's on the agenda.
They presented last week, right?
They did.
Yeah. I mean, who has a question?
Well, whoever pushes the button will recognize them for questions, but.
Second.
All right. I got a motion to approve with the proper second.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
I'm sorry, sir.
I'm going to clarify. There's a motion from the Commissioner from the 6th and a second from the Mayor Pro Tem to approve.
Okay.
All right. Voting.
That motion carries 6-1, with Mr. Clark voting no, Ms. McKnight, Mr. Mason, and Mr. Franham out.
Mr. Mayor, I get a point of personal privilege, sir.
Hold on a minute. Okay. All right, Chair recognizes the Commissioner from the 6th. Station Inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say to you, I have a constituent who's not a city employee, just want to let that for the record, said they want me to thank you publicly for recognizing that the citizens or the employees, of Augusta Richmond County are human beings as well. And they thought it wanted me to say thank you for saying that, making those comments.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, if that's all the business before us, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, sir.